Man questions Charlie Kirk on gun control. Kirk's response impresses everyone.
That's a good argument, but I would say a little flawed. Where the citizens are able to protect themselves in some ways, it's a much harder population to control.
I understand, but so you think a federal registry would infringe on the rights?
Potentially. I mean, I think that there's no good argument, I think, other than potential. I ascribe to the government bad motives and bad intentions when it wants to infringe more on these types of freedoms and liberties.
Well, I understand. I just personally don't see it as an infringement because, like we just said, and I think we agreed that owning a gun is a right. However,
yes.
I think it was responsibilities. But also, I wanted to ask: is voting a right, or is that a privilege?
Well, it is a right, and that's so felons can get their rights back, right? And so,
right.
But rights can be suspended or delayed, and
right.
we both agree with that. So,
right,
for example, like somebody in prison doesn't get guns.
Right. No, of course.
Somebody in prison doesn't have the same free speech rights that you
right,
might have.
But what's the first thing that you have to do if you want to vote in this country? You have to register, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a federal registration to be able to vote in this country. So why not, and we can agree that, keeping safe and, keeping our elections to where people who shouldn't vote aren't voting is, that's keeping America safe because we don't want people who
That's a fair
vote.
point. I would say there's something, there's a technical difference between a voter registration roll and a gun registration
Right, guns
roll.
are much more dangerous.
Well, also, but guns in many different ways, they would go after the guns a lot more than the voter registration roll.
Well, how do we know, though?
My worldview comes out of one in the 20th century, where almost every totalitarian government went after the guns first, and the confiscation of guns then leads into the erosion of freedom and liberty.
Right, but wouldn't you say in the 20th century, as you just said, that the disparity between the technology that citizens had to protect themselves compared to what the military had, wouldn't you say that there was a much smaller disparity as opposed to what we see nowadays?
Somewhat. I think that's a fair point.
So,
I'm acknowledging that's a fair point.
okay.
But do you see my perspective as well?
No, I do understand.
That armed citizenry, also it says shall not be infringed, so we have to kind of wrestle with those two things
right,
simultaneously.
but so if it's just a semantics argument, then to that point...
Well, it's not. I mean, semantics is meaning. That's literally what the word means. But
right, but
so,
you're saying because it says shall not be infringed, we can't do anything.
No,
does that mean
that
voting rights can be infringed? Because it doesn't say it cannot be infringed.
I'm saying I err on the side that more government regulation around guns means that they'll try to take good people's guns away, which then results in less global or